Greetings. Today we present an exceptional opportunity for you to consider. We cordially invite you to embark on a profound journey, a transition towards spiritual enlightenment that could reshape your understanding of the world. In this video, you will hear a passage titled, "An Unexpected Visitor One Night," from the book, The Journey Begins Within by SAVI. Together, these teachings emphasize the importance of recognizing divine intervention, maintaining faith and perseverance, experiencing unconditional love, leaving a legacy of service, acknowledging spiritual visitations, practicing gratitude and humility, and receiving support from ancestors for a spiritually enriched life. In this video, you will learn 1. Divine intervention. Even in the darkest times, the divine can intervene miraculously to provide guidance and support. 2. Faith and perseverance. Holding on to faith and persevering through hardships can lead to unexpected blessings and spiritual growth. 3. Unconditional love. Experiencing unconditional divine love can bring profound healing and transformation. 4. Legacy and service. The legacy we leave through acts of kindness and service to others is more valuable than material wealth. 5. Spiritual visitations. Spiritual visitations such as dreams or visions can provide comfort, guidance, and affirmation of our life's path. 6. Gratitude and humility. Being grateful and humble, even in difficult circumstances, opens the door for divine assistance and miracles. 7. Support from ancestors. Ancestors and loved ones who have passed on can still play a significant role in guiding and supporting us from the spiritual realm. I hope you enjoy it. See the video description for additional details.
An unexpected visitor one night. The most essential when least expected. Nothing much had happened since the prior events until the latter part of 2001, when I moved from California to South Beach for my last corporate job. Having been recently let go due to what could be characterized as the beginning of my Calvary, I had begun to experience the pressure required to change from my old self into the blossoming of the being I am today. I can't express my gratitude to those who dared to steer me into the abyss of the unknown and for their unanticipated contributions to my life's journey. After what had been a stellar initial corporate career at a very young age, I was now faced with having to make ends meet with no savings and looking at the possibility of homelessness, all while confronting the necessity of self-sponsoring a working visa and finding a way to attain my legal permanent residence in the U.S. During the day, I would work on the company's business plan and immigration papers and study for my real estate license, as it was the only opportunity I could find within 90 days of being let go to remain in the U.S. legally. I had just deposited all I had left of my savings after paying for my MBA in Berkeley to acquire the apartment I was renting, as the whole building was being converted from rental to condos, which was a thing those days. I had no credit, and the interest rate I paid for my one bedroom was over 8%. The level of stress was gigantic. I barely had money to eat, and I had to do labor work in construction during my free time at nights or weekends, such as painting apartments by myself in the building I was living in, which would allow me almost to cover the monthly mortgage and expenses. Why is all this important? I emphasize that divine intervention in the physical planes of existence is possible and a reality for those who are open to it. About 6 months have passed of this tortuous existence. Somehow I attained my real estate license and found the means to survive. I was working roughly 16-hour days for 7 days a week, non-stop. Despite those demanding hours, I even saved approximately $12,000. This money was used to renovate my now-owned apartment with the intent of flipping it for a tax-free profit within the next 2 years. All I had to do was to continue the pace and somehow survive. I had a goal and saw the end in sight, albeit a distant future. Those days, I used to be so driven that I could overwork anyone. My ego and drive were such that I knew I could take on whatever the world would throw. I hired an Argentine general contractor who was licensed and renovated the building. He assisted me with the permits, additional labor, and materials. With a properly executed contract and all my belongings placed in the bedroom, he demolished the entire kitchen, living room, bathroom, and entry foyer. At the same time, I went to spend Christmas in Argentina with my family. Of course, I left him with the capital required for the work to progress throughout that month, so when I was back, the idea was to move from the bedroom into the finished living area and then tackle that room as the last item of renovation. My bank would not allow for non-presential wires, so sending the money every week was out of the question, and I had no one else I could entrust for oversight either, as I was new in town. By then, we had established rapport and explored the idea of going into business together, renovating other units, or eventually developing them. So I trusted him with the task and the capital. My trusting nature believed in all his progress reports and advancements. I did not have an iPhone then, so it was not like I could do a FaceTime or Zoom call. To my nasty surprise, when I came back at the beginning of January, the apartment was almost the same as I left it, with no real advancement to speak of, and the contractor was avoiding me at all costs. Later, I found out that he had developed a cocaine addiction and was spending his nights frequenting South Beach nightclubs. I was left with the daunting task of finishing the work myself and with no capital, as I had already given the money to him. It was one of many lessons of betrayal by contractors and later other business partners in Miami in this industry that I categorized as conniving at best. I state all these facts because I was at my breaking point when the next miracle happened. Sleeping amidst all the dust and the ongoing renovation in a wedge of the bed surrounded by boxes and personal belongings, I worked myself to exhaustion from sunrise to sunset, while also renovating the unit. I couldn't afford to pay anyone, so I learned how to do drywall, tiling, and basic electricity and plumbing. I asked another general contractor to oversee my work to ensure it was done within the building code, as I needed to pass inspections to close the open permits. However, because there were no significant alterations, the construction was straightforward. I vividly remember that the apartment was finally done by the 4th of July, while the fireworks were going off at 9 p.m. All I needed to do was apply a fresh coat of ceiling paint. I was up on a ladder, painting, when I suffered my first lower back episode. For a reason unknown to me, something went wrong with my spine, likely due to both the physical and mental stress, and my vertebrae pinched my nerves. An excruciating pain, equivalent to being stabbed in my lower back with a knife, shot through my body. I fell off the ladder and ended up on the floor, unable to breathe, let alone move. There I lay, alone on the floor, looking at the kitchen counter where my cell phone was out of reach, unable to scream for help. My Red Cross lifeguard training kicked in, and I reminded myself that it's panic that kills people who are drowning, not the water. I realized that I had to breathe, no matter the level of pain. Slowly and steadily, I forced myself to stay conscious, or I would pass out. The muscle spasms that had forced my spine out of place eventually subsided slightly after an eternity of 30 minutes. I managed to crawl onto my bed slowly. There, I cried. The despair was so unfathomable that I was confronted with the idea of ending it all then and there. Here comes the good stuff. But before you can understand the relevance of what comes next, I need to provide additional background information so that the following miracle will have the same significance to you as it did for me. A few great men were in my family. One of them was my great-grandfather Manuel and my grandfather Oscar, whose name I carry as my second name. Both men defied the odds, achieved significant wealth by different means, and earned societal recognition. My great-grandfather Manuel was an industrious accountant for a wealthy family and constructed a small real estate empire that sustained several generations. On the other hand, my grandfather Oscar was a self-taught salesperson who eventually became an industrialist with a passion for cars and some real estate development. Within my family, I had the living example of the story Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki through the lives of my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father. Now, Oscar was an extraordinary soul, I never met him. He died of his second heart attack at the age I am now, 52, because his closest family member bankrupted him by stealing from the factory. Oddly enough, speaking of generational karma, I experienced the same these past few months. Still, luckily for me, although I had a chest episode when given the news that I had just been defrauded of all my capital by those closer to me to whom I had extended my hand and resources, my heart was strong enough to withstand the event. Anyway, back to Oscar, whom I never met in person, but I encountered his legacy instead, learning how fondly those who knew him spoke of him. He was widely known for his acts of kindness and assistance to others. One of the most significant moments during my childhood was when my mom's cousin, effectively a second uncle to me, who had been put in charge of my grandpa's factory, gave me a tour. I met one of the janitors who had worked for my grandpa Oscar during this visit. This person was one of the oldest employees, and I have had a lot of interactions with him. As my uncle introduced me, "This is Santiago, the grandson of Oscar." I vividly remember this man's eyes almost watering, and the words that later came out of his mouth defined the persona I wanted to embody, and one of the most profound spiritual lessons of my early life. What a great man your grandfather was. He has helped so many. Statements such as these from him and others showed me early on that the critical aspects of a true man's legacy are not wealth or forceful victories, but the legacy of what others will think of us when we are no longer on this earth. Right then and there, I made the resolve that I wanted in my life to be of service to others, and whatever I ended up becoming, I wanted people to remember me for how I was instrumental in their life's journey once gone. So, back to that night in South Beach. As you will now understand its relevance, I had a vivid dream as I fell asleep, crying in despair at my situation. In that dream, I was standing on the porch of my grandfather's weekend house at night, overlooking the vast and beautiful 5-acre gardens. A huge party was going on, much like the one we had with over 60 people in my childhood. Everyone was having a blast. Some appeared to be speaking, and others were even dancing. Curiously, it felt as though I knew them all, but their physical forms were all in their early 30s, making it hard to pin down who was who. This surprised me, because I didn't realize I saw all my ancestors together. Some would look at me from afar and smile. As I write this sentence, I have tears and chills running down my spine. I have only shared what I will tell you with a select few. I could sense a presence to my left, and as I turned, I saw a young, thin, medium-height man looking at me with piercing, dark brown eyes and a smile. In a very calm and soft voice, he asked me how I was and what was happening. Innocently, like a child, I responded that my life was a disaster and that I wished I was dead. The level of physical and emotional pain was so intense that my body was shutting down. I didn't see how I could go on given my current circumstances and couldn't see a way out. I felt cornered by life, unsure of how to move forward. Also, I expressed that all I wanted to be when I grew up was like Oscar, my grandfather, a self-made man admired by others who left a legacy of selflessness. The person beside me smiled. His eyes sparkled with what I can now describe as the joy of a proud father looking at his son. Then he tells me, "Everything will be okay. Wait and see." He wrapped his arms around me in a warm hug. In that dream, at that very moment, I experienced absolute bliss. My pain disappeared, and for the first time, I felt what I didn't know then was unconditional divine love. As the man pulled away from me, his face morphed into that of Oscar's, just as I knew him from the old photograph I had of him at 52. Now, what is so significant about this dream? You may describe it as a vivid dream, and yes, based on what you know thus far, you're probably right in your assessment. But here is where the magic started. As Oscar pulled away, I suddenly woke up, still feeling this immense divine love, yet unable to breathe. I tried reaching for my phone on the nightstand, but was completely paralyzed. The alarm clock showed it was 5 a.m. Lying there, I thought I was dying. My back had probably snapped. I was now paralyzed and couldn't breathe any longer. I remained calm as I was expecting to lose consciousness and pass away. Meanwhile, I was experiencing what some call amor fati, and this overwhelming divine bliss. After what felt like another eternity, similar to the previous night, I sensed a presence leave my body. As this presence departed, my body regained its mobility. In a brisk yet careful move, I sat in bed and took a deep breath. As I gasped for the air, the presence was leaving, as was the blissful state. I looked at the alarm clock again. It was now 5:03 a.m. Through some miraculous event, I was still alive and had managed not to pass out, despite not breathing for over 3 minutes. I managed to get up and compose myself. My new working bathroom allowed me to prepare for the day ahead, as I had a rental showing in Key Biscayne. I intended to close a rental contract that day to be able to pay the prior month's mortgage and building maintenance. Brushing off the previous night's dream and the strange event of the morning as delusions brought on by the stress I was under, I went on with my day, still barely able to move due to my back injury. I knew something wasn't right with my body, but I didn't have health insurance or the time or money to see a doctor. This was going to be just one of many instances where I would be confronted with life-threatening situations and potential insurmountable medical expenses in this life journey here in the U.S. Meanwhile, my family back in Argentina were unaware of my perils. Yet, somehow, life seemed to straighten itself out, and miracles took place in each of these instances. But these are not examples I care to share. As I was driving over the Key Biscayne Causeway, I received a call out of the blue. Out of respect for their anonymity, I won't refer to any third parties in this book. I will also avoid mentioning direct details, as this book, if fallen into the hands of those close, may inadvertently hint at the participants. But the call went like this. "Hi, Santiago. You probably don't remember me. You introduced me to 6 months ago. I don't have to do this, but I want you to know that I made $250,000 thanks to you, and I want to give you 10% of it right now." I had to pull over to regain my composure. My hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding. My prayers had been answered, but more importantly, I realized that something much more significant had occurred in the last few hours, and that the vivid dream was more like a spiritual visitation. I'd asked for a miracle, and God had answered. Overwhelmed with emotion, I called my mom. Without detailing all my troubles, I told her that her father, Oscar, had worked a miracle for me. Never underestimate the value and power of lending someone a hand. You do not know what they are going through and to what degree you are being of service. Remember this story the next time something with you raises your awareness of acting kindly. In essence, you are an instrument of the divine in your small way in the great tapestry of life. This was the first of many instances in which, through divine, timely intervention, the material needs of my journey were provided for. You may dismiss these two stories as mere coincidences, the overactive imagination of a distressed individual, or stress-induced neurological hallucinations. I am not sharing my most intimate experiences for you to judge, although I know there will be many who will. I am mustering the courage to share all my metaphysical experiences so you may open yourself to the possibility that they may exist in a form and dosage perfect for each circumstance. If you only expect to categorize miracles as the apparition of the Virgin Mary or some sort of angelic being wielding a flaming sword and calling your name, then you are missing out of what else could be available awaiting your discovery.
If the content moves you, we invite you to embark on your journey by purchasing a copy of the book at Amazon, Kindle, or iBook today. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring. The journey begins within. Click like and subscribe for additional details. See the video description.